Well, welcome back again to Guerrilla Discipleship. My name's Kevin Baker. I get to be your host, and we're continuing with part two of Ann Jordan's interview with Kane Day as we talk about what Samuel has been doing and how God's been at work in Samuel in Kenya. It is amazing. And so today, what you're going to hear is a couple of things. You're going to hear about the process that God's used, and you're going to hear about the partnerships that God has used. Now, again, 5, 6 years ago, when we began to commit under God's leading to be involved in making disciples, we didn't have any idea. Kenya was not on our map. But if you were tuned in with us last week, and if you didn't hear last week, please go back and listen to part one of this interview, because it's just been a miracle. It's nothing short of a biblical Acts 2 kind of miracle story. But today, you're going to hear a little bit more about the process and the partnership. So let's get right to Ann and Kane Day. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, I want to get a little bit into how you were able to disciple and train Samuel. How did you connect with him and communicate with him? Either early on and or now, if that has changed in some way. How often do you meet with him, and what do you do in your time together? Can you paint that picture a little bit of what it looked like to disciple him? And then if you can share maybe about, how it looks with Samuel on the ground, discipling other people, training them there in Kenya.
Yeah, so initially, and Anne was privy to some of this, but when we started, I told him, I said, this is discipleship-based, a discipleship-based kind of structure. So it's obedience-based, so you need to obey. So are you willing to commit to that? And he said, yes. So I started with once a week Bible studies and coaching. So we follow the questions, all the 7 questions. What are you thankful for? What do you need prayer for, and all that? What does this teach us about God? And your response. So we did that faithfully every week. And then whenever he wanted to talk, I would be there, so we had an open communication, and we did that. And when he started to lead the group, and that was immediately actually, I just encouraged him. I would ask him about, did you follow the structure? Did people share? Did they do their I will response and things like that? So the first group of 3 that we had, it was kind of mechanical, we did that. And soon, within a month or 2, some of them, each one of them had groups. But it almost seemed like the root wasn't deep enough at first. So they started getting into arguments with some of the group members, arguing about doctrine and things like that. And when we found out, I tried to correct that. Just stick to the topic, discover what God is saying in that scripture. It was kind of too late. One of them got intimidated and said he did not want to lead groups anymore. And we said, that's okay, just keep meeting. The other one, everything just fell apart. And that third group lasted for almost a year, maybe 9 months. His group had grown, and then later on, he just said, well, I want to do something else. So initially, we had some setbacks, but while that was happening, the other groups had started to form. And this time around, we just wanted to not focus on the number, but focus on developing disciple makers. I think that's the key thing that changed. and we started to work with them. And whenever these groups are formed, if I'm invited in, because sometimes they have WhatsApp groups, I got to know people. I would talk to them sometimes whenever they met, or shared about their DMM. So that gave me the opportunity to coach.
Mhm,
So I
mhm,
would always go back to the basics. How,
mhm.
how is the sharing? How is the response? And things like that. But having that interface with the subgroups reinforced whatever Samuel was teaching some of these group leaders, and then their subgroups. And so it really helped because I was able to see maybe something was amiss. Like, I remember at one time we had an issue where a lot of people were hearing about DMM, so they just kept adding them to the groups.
Okay.
And I was telling them, oh, well, this is how we do it. You actually want to form new groups
Mhm.
and coach the person of peace and things like that. So that was the change in strategy. Once we finished Creation to Christ, I no longer had the weekly meetings that I used to with Samuel.
Mhm.
It was more or less we just communicated as time
Mhm.
went on for a
Mhm.
while.
Mhm. Mhm. So when your means of communicating with Samuel, the way that you did the discovery process in Creation to Christ, and then also coaching him as he turned and did it with people, was over the phone using an app, or was it were you doing video, or was it just audio phone calls?
Um,
How did you connect with Samuel in Kenya, in a way that clearly was very effective?
yeah, we did videos for special meetings, like
Uh-huh.
monthly or quarterly meetings. When I first met with Samuel, we did video, and
Okay.
then it was easier for us to just do audio because of data issues.
Yes.
So we continued with audio, and whenever we had a special meeting with others, we would do video so we could all see one another.
Okay. But he had a cell phone available.
That's right.
And then what did he have in terms of a Bible? Did he have a physical Bible in English or Swahili or?
That's right. He has an English Bible that he
Mhm,
uses, and he is, he's good enough, in English to be able to clearly follow whatever I say. Some of the groups, that's not the case, but he's fluent in Swahili also, so he can translate to them um, whenever we have meetings. But I mean, it was, I think, we always had communication issues. Sometimes, we have low bandwidth and all this kind of stuff. But I think the drive to learn, the hunger, was what propelled him forward anyway. And so when we tried to meet and it didn't work out, we would just set another day, text each other, and he was available.
that's great. You and I had some communication issues here on Zoom just a little bit ago, even trying to get this interview going, didn't we?
That's right. Yep.
But we wanted the story to be told, so we persevered. just like you said, you and Samuel did. That's so good. All right. How about I want to talk a little bit about partnerships, and you talked about your taking Samuel through the DBS and coaching him, and sometimes being in on some of the other group meetings. Take me back. Was David Deans helping and coaching you? In
That's
before you would meet with Samuel, and was that part of the whole chain of events here too?
So David, for the most part, has been a coach. It's not a weekly. Sometimes we meet weekly. Um, it's and it's been more or less being a guide, like when we met with the Muslims. This is perhaps you want to try the Wa'a app or things like that. So
Mhm.
making sure that we are, in the straight and narrow. So at times when a lot of activities are happening, we would maybe meet weekly, sometimes maybe once a month or something.
Yeah, and in what I heard you describe both there and with Samuel, that coaching can often look like, well, you know how to get a hold of me. Just send me a message if you have a question or a situation, and I can get back to you. Is that
That
how a lot of it goes now?
Yes, that's a lot of it. With Sam and I, we have multiple times that we meet
Okay.
during the week because we pray together.
Okay.
So some of the teams, there are group prayers. So we meet during the group prayer. He also has a coaching kind of a coaching session for some of the core group leaders in different regions. And I would oftentimes be in on that. That's every Monday. Um, so I have multiple opportunities to interface with him, and then we can always call each other. And it's the same thing with David. So whenever there are major things happening, I would always text David, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this? Hey, we're working on this." And we would call, he would give us feedback, things like that.
Yeah, excellent. And then what about any other sorts of connections or partnerships or things that have been made in Kenya, on the ground in Kenya, between any other disciple making movement practitioners, organizations? Are there others that you have tried to successfully connect Samuel with, so that there are people more in his area that he can um, uh, also turn to, I guess, for.
That's right. So there's a more mature, I guess, DMM group in Kenya and the Nairobi and other, they're a very big group. And Samuel, actually, David actually pushed for that to help connect Samuel with some of these groups, and he's been in touch with them. Like they have like WhatsApp groups, and he is a part of the WhatsApp group, so he knows. So he does glean from some of these things. It's not just the one-on-one.
Mhm.
He sees how certain things are done, how church is done. One of the things that inspired him a few months ago that he was telling me about is the way they fellowship, going from house to house and things like that. So there is, he is getting something from the other group.
Yeah, so he feels like he is part of something bigger, even on the ground there in Kenya, and not just this strange thing that has been shown him by people in Maryland or in the United States, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. He's been to their meetings at least twice, so
And
he is,
he doesn't live near Nairobi, right?
no, he's quite far away from Nairobi.
So that's like a big deal, but again, shows his hunger to keep moving forward. I think somewhere I saw an email that he took an overnight bus or something some months ago to Nairobi to meet with somebody, and we're talking many hours each way, and
12 hours each way.
yeah.
Uh, to meet with Stan and some other people. So
Yeah.
David informs me that Stan Parks would be traveling to Kenya, and wouldn't it be lovely for Sam to meet with him? So as soon as I told Sam, he's like, I'm gone. And so he traveled 12 hours, that's right, to meet with Sam.
Yes. Stan Parks is a movement catalyst based in the Middle East, I think, but originally from this country. Um, Kende, can you share maybe some of the, a couple examples maybe of some challenges, difficulties, problems that you have faced, and some of them perhaps have hopefully been overcome, and others may be more ongoing. What sorts of obstacles have you encountered? Or has Samuel encountered? Maybe.
Yeah. So the groups that we've been dealing with are people that are poor. Like in the northern part of Kenya, they're refugees, and the villages around the refugee camps. So the Lord's been opening the door for us to reach villages now. And one group was formed in the villages. But these villages are extremely poor. And so we quickly realized it made no sense. In fact, one of the ladies that we were ministering to, if I showed you a picture, she was skinny to the bone, like malnourished. You would cry if you saw the video. So that's a challenge. We quickly realized it requires some money. Thankfully, it's not too expensive to help, because when you convert US dollars, into the Kenyan shillings, it goes a long way.
And that's part of what we talk about with Shema, our actions accompanied by words that express that what we're doing is in the name of Jesus. And so that's an example then of some clear needs for basic life-giving things like food, correct?
Yes. So with food, so we, the ministries were helping. When I say ministries, the groups were helping. Those who help feed some of these people, it costs about $60 a month to feed these different groups of people. And we would like to do more, but it's costly. There's a group of women now in southern Kenya, well, not quite south, but in between, that we're trying to reach, but we need provisions. God, for God to provide for that. So there's always that kind of need. Some of the other challenges we have, well, with food, there's water. So we are partnering with another ministry that, a charitable organization, and David is kind of helping spearhead that effort to get wells dug all around Kenya and to help minister, to provide water for all these cities and especially the desert areas. So that's ongoing, and we hope it will become fruitful. Also, there's a language barrier. So some of the people that we are sending need interpreters to interpret into indigenous languages. So it's a challenge. That also costs money for them to go and all that. So those are some of the kind of challenges we faced.
In that in that, Kende, you through Samuel and others are now reaching people, people groups for whom there is has not been gospel access before, or the scriptures even written in their language.
Yeah, so the villages, for example, in the desert, these are people that are really back in time. They're backwards. So we're even looking for, are there Bibles in their language? You know, that kind of thing. Because we're trying to get some Bibles to them and find someone who's educated enough to be able to read. So for the most part, in the past, these people didn't even send their kids to school. So now some of them are sending their kids to school. So we have kids that understand regular Swahili and the local languages and can translate. So yes, these are unreached groups. One of the villages we went to does have a church, but it's, you know, it has a church. When I say, you know, like a broomstick kind of place in the desert that they call a church, but a lot of these places they don't know about Jesus, you know. So this is real discovery. So when our people get there and start sharing Jesus Christ. So you asked earlier, what's our strategy? So when we go into a village, we don't start with DMM, right? You know, we start talking about Jesus. And then anyone who's interested and wants to learn more, we say, oh, okay, there's something called a DBS that we can start with you, and we can meet with you every week, and you'll learn about God and Jesus Christ. So that's how it goes.
And you just mentioned kids. Are there examples of children of some age that are doing DBS or involved in this as well? Is it multi-generational?
Well, we saw a little bit of that earlier on, and in the villages, the children are helping to interpret. When I say children, I'm talking about like teenagers and stuff. We did have a group of young people that went to college in Kenya, and they had started DMM and DBSs and kind of fell off. So, so may God give us more success in that area. But in Uganda, a lot of the groups we have, several of the groups are young people, college-age students meeting through DBS.
Yeah, just a great example of how, you know, it's God who does the drawing of people to himself, and we just want to come alongside and partner with him in that. And it looks different ways in different places for sure.
Wow. Again, unbelievable what God has been doing. So thank you again for being here. We've got one more segment with Ann and Cane Day, so I hope you'll come and be a part of next week's Guerrilla Discipleship. As always, you can send an email to kbaker@oakdale.church if there's any way we can resource you. God bless you for being a part of this.